Hey guys, new video here. This is Wolcen, Lords of Mayhem. I'm gonna just do a quick daily dungeon here so you can see some gameplay. And I want to talk about this game. I bought this game on Steam yesterday. It was like, not yesterday, I bought it like a few weeks ago for like 20 bucks. And I had played it like maybe a year to 2 years ago. And I was like, you know what? Since PoE has like a lot of downtime from time to time, right? I was like, why not just pick up a new ARPG and check it out and see how it goes. And my first time playing it, I thought it sucked. I was like, man, there's like the quest objectives are horrible. The gameplay feels kind of bad. You know, like I have no idea what I'm doing. And after a year or a year and a half, the game's pretty good. It's a pretty good game. I will say, I have to start by saying that like, the game has less than 3 hours, I think, of actual like play time when you think about like just like unique things to do right now. And I'll compare this game to like PoE in a lot of aspects, but for 20 bucks, you're only getting about 3 hours of content, right? That means doing all the quests, all the story quests, and then getting to the last town where then your source of, I guess, of things to do is going to be a daily dungeon or an arena, right? And I guess you could argue that, yeah, you can do those like a billion times, kind of like maps in PoE, but I won't count it because it was very unfinished. And the main thing to think about in this game is that there's just a lot of unfinished stuff, like a whole lot, okay? But that doesn't really detract from, you know, the game. The game looks beautiful. It performs way better for, you know, alpha than PoE does right now after 5 years. But I do understand it's a different engine, so of course that's to be expected. Like you can look at the graphics here. I'm playing on the stream is scaled to 720 resolution, but when I play, I'm on 1440, and the game is just beautiful. Like everything about it, you look at it and you're like, wow, that's really awesome. Oh, that guy died like instantly. So the loot currently, well, actually, the character levels, they go up to a max of level 20 right now, which I think is like still, I feel it's still really early in like the game's lifetime, right? Which means that I got to level 14 in 3 hours, and so level 20 would probably be, you know, another couple hours after that if I just keep grinding away in the dungeons and stuff. Because early on, there's a lot. It's kind of like PoE, right? Early on, it's just a lot of like nothingness, right? Oh, they got teleported. That's pretty sweet. And so you'll see me like just clearing this. I'm using like one skill. The skill diversity currently isn't, I don't think is that great. There's a couple reasons for that I'll talk about later. So that you can see this is like the daily dungeon. I have flasks here, which kind of increase how many times I can roll, which is denoted by like the 4 little green dots right here. And monster density for this level, I'm like pretty impressed sometimes in the dungeons. Like obviously right now that's not so good, but there are certain daily dungeons where you'll go into a room and you'll see like, you know, for a level 14, 13 zone, like so many monsters, right? And that's really crazy. So I like that. Most of all, the game just makes sense. If you're a new player and you pick up both PoE and you pick up Wolcen and you play for like a couple hours, you're gonna know way more about what you're doing, you know, maybe why you're doing things. You're just gonna feel better playing Wolcen. I'll say that the mechanics are, I guess, a little bit simpler than PoE's, so it's a little more new player friendly. And then, in terms of like just getting your character to an effective level is also, you know, pretty easy as well. Let me, you can't use the town portal here. Okay, so I don't know how to get back here apparently, but let's talk about like certain things on the skill tree and stuff. Okay, so first I'll talk about skills. So in Wolcen, what you do is like in your inventory, you're gonna pick up these tomes, right? It's kind of like Diablo 1, where to get the skill, you basically have to find it or you have to buy it from a merchant. So like, you know, you have things like disruption. This is gaze of something. It's like, here, I'll show you. It's like this skill right here. It's pretty cool. I mean, look at this. Look at those graphics there. That's pretty cool, right? And then you have things like Frost Nova, so some skills are on cooldown. And then you have, you know, like lightning spells, you have like fire spells, and you also have like buffs and stuff. Like this is a buff that increases my spell damage and reduces the mana cost. And then this is like my main ability. It's just like it would be like Arc in PoE, right? except for it's like way better. And I will say something about like the game's like overall feel is that when you're running around, you can like hit anything on the screen with this, and the screen, like the aspect ratio and whatever, it looks kind of similar to PoE, but it's actually it actually feels way better. Like PoE, you kind of sometimes feel like constricted, right? You can't see that much. In this game, you can see a whole lot, and you can even like rotate the camera, which is sometimes not a good thing. I would really prefer a fixed camera actually, but it's not bad. Like for example, like it'll help you a lot to rotate the camera so you can see more stuff. And there's actually like a tooltip that says like rotating the camera can help you like find different things and whatever. So that's pretty cool. Another part of the game that feels a little bit better is that I think the servers are just better, obviously, because like no one's really playing this game, right? So in PoE you desync all the time. In this game you don't really desync. There's in terms of lag, there's a little bit of lag when you level up just because there's so many particle effects. And then also there's some lag when you enter a room for the first time and there's like a billion monsters all trying to booty blast you. But other than that, it's like there's really not that much lag. So the performance is like a billion times better than PoE. Okay, so back to the skill stuff. So you learn these and then you gain the skill, and then you have it pretty much forever, which I think is kind of cool. The skills themselves, they each have a kind of a level up system. So these are like, this is like Diablo. Or not, yeah, it's like Diablo 3, whereas when you level up a skill, you gain certain runes to pick between, right? And then in Diablo 3, you can pick one, but in this game, you can pick between multiple. And so, like, for example, my lightning strike, I can choose between, like, reducing the mana cost, or I can choose between having it tick, more DPS, basically. It ticks faster, right? And then as you level, some of them is currently just 1. I don't know if that's going to stay as 1 or if it's unfinished, because as you can see, like each of these little dashes right here is a level, and so it can go all the way up here, but they don't have the runes ready, right? Once again, a lot of stuff in this game is unfinished. And then so like this one's just 1, right? This is an extra chain, and then here you can choose between extra chain or triggering a lightning explosion, and that's like an impulses effect basically from PoE, if you're familiar with that. And then once again, you'll have the choice of probably 2 more runes at each of these keystone parts. And like some of them have some stuff like that's way up here, but once again, still unfinished, right? And like this one, it only has two sets of runes to choose between, and all of this is unfinished. So something to note about this is that the leveling up of these skills is kind of cool. So of course, like you level up, you like kill monsters and stuff, you'll get a little bit of XPs here for sure. But the main way, like the super fast way to level them is, let's say you get extra skill tomes, right? If you get extra skill tomes, what you do is you go to a vendor actually, and you take these skill tomes and you sell them to the vendor. And what the vendor does is it gives you a resource called knowledge, right? It's actually called knowledge. You gain IQ, and and so this stacks up, and then you use these crystal things, these knowledges, to level up your skill gems. And you know, obviously, like higher levels cost a lot more, right? And then so that's one way you do it. So it's like worth it to pick up all these tomes. In terms of the how the skills feel, I think I showed you a few of them, but yeah, they feel pretty good. Like the arc is like very responsive. It has not like an auto lock feature, but it's like it has like an aim helper kind of, and the chains of course feel really nice. One thing I will say about this game in terms of the skills is when you get one of these runes, you definitely feel it. Like for this one, getting the tick, having the ticks go faster was really noticeable. Obviously, like a chain, it was extremely noticeable. And then this one, like the lightning explosion on like chance on kill, that was, you can see that there's like it's like a massive explosion, bodies go flying everywhere, and overall it feels really good. Whereas in Path of Exile, if you, let's say you have a 5 link, right, and then your 6 link, let's say you add something like you know, a more multiple, let's say you add control destruction to your spell, okay? You don't really feel that, right? I mean, sure, like you might kill a monster a tiny bit faster, and you know, maybe you'll notice a little bit of loss in crit over time, right? But you don't really, you're not like, whoa, the skill has changed. And like these skill gems, the fact that there's like 5 tiers at least for each one, that's pretty cool, because that means that's 5 different times that you can kind of customize your character differently than you could before. So I think that's a really cool system. And see, like I guess that's kind of a boss, right? And now that I leveled up, I'll show you the other stuff. But skills in this game feel a lot better currently than some of the stuff in PoE. Now PoE still has obviously way more skill diversity because it's just been around for 5 years and they add a ton of skills all the time, right? But I'm pretty excited about this. So I got back to town. There's a leaderboard for getting through the dungeon the fastest. So let's talk about stats, right? In Path of Exile, there's no stats. You get the stats from the skill tree. In this game, it's very much like Diablo 2, where you have to assign your skill points. So Frosty is like things like crit power or crit damages, like attack speed, melee damage, things like that. And then toughness is just, you would expect like life and res. Agility is like move speed, dodge, crit, and then like range damage, right? And then willpower is your classical like spellcaster stuff like health regen, or not health regen, spell damage, stats, ailment, chance, and then like resist. So very much like Diablo 2. Now it even like tells you here like what if your stat is weak, average, excellent, And currently the game kind of suffers from you benefiting from dumping everything into the stat point that corresponds with your type of build. So for example, like I think a really cool thing here, and it's got like a mini POB, right? Kind of. It's a little bit better than Path of Exile's system where you allocate points and you're like, what did that really do, right? Whereas you can still go to like your character panel and take a look at the individual skill, but this is more, if you look here, like look at all these stats, right? You can kind of see a little bit more info about your character all in one place. For example, like I just want to dump everything in here, right? So you can see that like the damage modifier to spells, it goes up a little bit, health regen, stuff like that. And let's say I didn't do that, right? Let's say I went like ferocity, right? Let's say I put all my points here, and you can very easily see that there's some modifiers that go up on the right. So it's like highlighted for you, which I think is really good. When you start the game, a lot of the things are like under 100%. So like you're effectively getting, they're like more multipliers a lot of the time, right? And so if you dump everything into one of them, you'll get a lot more benefit because like the willpower, you look at the spell modifier and everything, and it would be better than going into things like, there's like diminishing returns. So like agility, like the crit chance, there's going to come a point where it takes multiple points to get 0.1 crit. And a big part of this game, like currently what I've seen is that crit is way easier to get for attack-based builds. Like melee, attack-based, probably like range builds, you get way easier crit than spells. And maybe that's what they want in the game, right? So I confirmed, and you can like respec at any time, which is really great, right? Maybe it's because it's in alpha that they don't want you to like mess up your character, but even if you did, it only takes like a few hours to get to max level. So that's like the stat sheet. Pretty cool stuff. I can see this being fleshed out even more and having, depending on what the unique items are in this game, like this might matter. But currently, you just dump everything into one, and then you're good to go. The skill tree. Okay, let's talk about the skill tree here. So it looks pretty crazy, right? Like, so this skill tree has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 interconnected rings. It looks like. Wait, hold on. 1, 2, 3. Well, currently there's only like 3 or 4 activated, but there could be like one more ring out here. And as you can see, a lot of it is incomplete, right? Like all these big sections out here, the entire outer ring has no skill points in it, and that's because it's just unfinished. And, excuse me. Okay. And even things like, for example, there's skill points on the tree that are unfinished. I'll show you right here. Like it'll say this. See, this passive skill point is not implemented yet. Taking it won't cost you any skill points. So you just like take it and it does nothing, right? So there's a lot of this on the skill tree. See, you can see even like these are, I would compare like the big ones to like notables in PoE, and small ones are actually still pretty darn good. Like most of the small ones still give, on average, give you something better than 1 point in PoE, but once again, the skill tree is currently a tiny, I think a tiny bit smaller than PoE. So the idea is that you can rotate these things around. You see this? Like you rotate these around, and then you basically make combinations. Now, one thing I will say is that I think at the end, like the most end game, there will still be like one path, right? Let's say you get 50 skill points. You get more than that, but like because you get 3 per level. But let's say you get like 50 skill points, there will be a best path to go for like, you know, your lightning strike arcanist or whatever tree you're going into, right? And so although it looks fancy, once people figure things out, it'll still be one optimal tree, and there won't be that much playing around. There will be some variation just because like you can make hybrid classes and stuff, but it's really not that complicated when you get down to it. You look at like nodes, and they're most, for even new players, it's kind of easy to understand, right? Like 10% spell casting speed, 1 willpower. So that's like willpower is just like flat damages, and then you cast a little bit faster. And then like look, minus 10% cooldown and 1 willpower, so damages and cooldown reduction. So most of the nodes are like that, and that's good for new players. It's easier to jump right into it. Like, see, you can like look at there's like a theme for every like little mini tree here when you start. Like Guardian is more like the like blocking and like attack and like melee attack stuff. Thief is about like, you know, probably crit damages speed. And here's like the Ranger tree. So there's like crit, there's like different skills, and you can unlock different skills in here as well. So I'll just show you real quick. Where's my wait, where'd it go? Basically, there's like this spellbinder right here. This is a buff, right? And I got this through the skill tree. So you can actually pick up skills through the skill tree. I think that's pretty cool. And then going on from this, you know how like Path of Exile has a lot of charges, you know, and recently we have a lot of if you've killed in the last 4 seconds effects. Well, if you like those kinds of effects, you like charges and PoE and all these like conditional things, there are things like that in this game as well. For example, this gives you some buffs when your Umbra is empty, when your Umbra is full, which is your mana, which I'll talk about in a second as well. And then like this is like, there's a lot of like if modifiers on the skill tree, which some people will like, some people won't like. Some people like if you, some people will enjoy when you assign a point that you always get that benefit, right? But some people might like, you know, balancing these conditional things onto your tree, right? So that's kind of cool. And going on to like how the spells work. So when I'm like casting right here, so this is like my lightning strike, right? And this game, as you can see, as I use one resource, this bar gets generated. So it's like a double resource system, right? It's an ebb and flow of mana and rage. So mana, as you can see, the white bars kind of like block out you from using that, right, until it regens. And then the rage bar makes it so I can use these attacks, right? So what's going to happen is like eventually in the end game, I'm guessing you're going to spend all your mana, right? You're going to like spend, and then you're going to use this rage, and you're going to like, you know, you're going to spend it, and then it recharges the other one. So it like goes back and forth like that, which I think is has potential to be a very interesting system. Although from what you've seen, like currently, the skills, if you pump everything into one skill, for example, lightning strike, it's just so OP. Like you'll just one-shot, two-shot most things in the game to the point where you never really need to manage your Umbra. It's kind of ridiculous, actually. And I don't know if that's just because it's early game or whatever. I'm sure they'll fix that later. But it is one thing to note that you'll just like destroy almost everything in this game by investing first into how do I get to the inventory screen? Into one stat and then into one skill, right? Like for example, this lightning strike is at level 15, right? Whereas like I tried these and they just suck. So that's one thing that might be kind of annoying. Another thing is like the roll mechanics. So if you look at these 4 green dots right here, right, this is stamina, and each time you roll, which is like your space bar, it uses one of those. And then these potions right here, if I hit my potions, I gain those back, see? And I can roll as long as I have these things, these roll things. Now, what you'll find is that because the way you get movement speed is through the skill tree, and then also through the character sheet, agility gives you move speed modifier right here. If you're not going an agility based build, like I'm running around like this, it's kind of slow. And so what you find yourself doing is like to get to the next part, I'll just like keep rolling, because like the rolling is a little bit faster than running. So what will happen is like when you finally encounter a pack of enemies, you won't even you won't have really that many rolls, right? And that's kind of annoying, especially with like there's like one boss that I fought so far where that was like kind of iffy. But Overall, I wish there was like better movement skills in this game, just coming from Path of Exile, but once again, the game is so unfinished that you can't really make too many judgments about that, and the run speed's still like okay, I guess. Like this is, yeah, it's fine, but as you can see, the rolling is way better, so waiting for those is really annoying. I would prefer that it's that it was a different system, but what can I do, right? And basically, rolling will help you avoid a lot of projectile attacks, a lot of like the dashes that the monsters have. But once again, one shot everything so far, so it doesn't really matter. In terms of other gearing, so if you look here, there's a lot of gear slots, right? Like there's 2 rings, there's 2 different glove slots, there's 2 different shoulder slots, and they'll be denoted on the item with left and right. And I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like it's kind of tedious to have this many slots, but then again, and there's a cape slot. Look at that. So it's kind of tedious, but if they make their unique items and like maybe some of their more interesting rare items the right way, it could open up a whole lot of build diversity and give you a lot of options for to do whatever you want, right? Whereas in PoE, it's I think Chris has stated this for PoE that, you know, if you have less slots, each slot is more impactful, and they can kind of build around that and give uniques more powerful stats. So we'll have to see how that turns out, but currently I'm liking it. Like, you find a lot of upgrades from time to time for at least one of your slots, and I think that's pretty cool. There's those, you know, there's like the normal items, the white items, the magic items, the rare items, and then I've heard there's like uniques that are like red or something like that. I haven't found a unique yet, but I'm a little 15, and you know, what's the chances you find a unique item in PoE by level 15, right? Pretty much 0. So that's pretty cool. And I'll show you what I mean by like selling these tomes. See, I sell the tomes, I gain knowledge. I got 29,000 knowledge, and if I wanted to, see, I could like improve it right here, but I don't have enough right now. So it's kind of nice. The quests in this game, they're really good about directing you where to go. I think they might even be better at directing you where to go than, say, PoE. A little bit, at least in the early game, and I think that's kind of nice. A little bit of hand-holding, never really hurt anybody. So that's pretty much it there. In terms of like stats and stuff, anything I found interesting, there's like a lot of conditional stuff, like gain this on kill. There's like your standard resistances, there's like damage modifiers, cooldown reduction from an early level, which I think is kind of interesting, right? If I can get a level 6 cloak with minus 7% chance of cooldown, I can see there being some crazy wombo combos later on, right? And that's really nice, like health regen, all this stuff, like attack speed, crit damages, and so the standard ARPG fare is to be found on the items. When it comes to the flasks, so it's very much a PoE system. So your flasks have a set number of uses by default. See, so if I hit this, I can gain my stamina back, right? And then they use the charges, you kill monsters and stuff, and they charge back. You have like mana potions, stamina potions, health potions, and they are of different sizes. So almost identical to the PoE system, and they have the stat rolls as well. Whereas like PoE, you can roll prefix, suffix. This one, you can get a bunch of stuff that's permanent on the flask. So for example, like this one has plus 3% health regen, and that's permanent. I don't have to use the flask for that. And I think that's really interesting. Like imagine rare and legendary potions that have like crazy stats on them, right? Like this one has agility, 4% to a main stat when equipped. Like that's crazy, right? When main stat is like so important. So you get like everything. Let's say you got like everything with a willpower roll, then you'd have like way more damages. And I like that kind of stuff. I like that OP stuff. And other than that, there's the combat in terms of, from what I've used, is like the staff. This is an auto attack of the staff. Look at this. That's crazy, right? Like that's so cool. So it's a combo. If you just hold down the attack, it does like lightning burst, and it does like a lightning strike. See? And there's like different elements. You can do fire, you can do frost, which all have different kinds of properties, and it's just really cool. And other things I've seen is like there's combos for using types of weapons or sets of weapons. For example, if I wanted to use a sword and a shield, I get access to like a shield charge skill that's on a 4-second cooldown that automatically like charges to the nearest enemy, right? Not as crazy as like shield charge from PoE, but still pretty darn good. So there's all kinds of stuff to be discovered in this game. I think with the items, with the skills, with like the way they all work together, I think there's a lot of potential for this game. a lot of potential. And I think that if the game feels at least a year, 2 years, yeah, at least a year or two away from being any kind of finished product. So I would liken this to be like, if you guys remember when PoE got first released, like out of beta, and it was when it came out of closed beta, it was like pretty much a full game, kind of, right? We had a map system. So this game though is far from that. Okay, so don't really buy this game if you're looking for that long-term gain, because well, maybe if you're looking for long-term gain, but if you're looking for that enjoyment where you can sink like, you know, 1 billion hours into this right away, it's just not there. Okay, so maybe save your monies, but it was very fun. And what else do I need to talk about? Closing thoughts. It's gonna be a good game. I can see myself playing this game quite a bit. Like, you know, I stream, right? So I have all this time, so maybe like I'll play this in the morning and then like PoE in the evenings, and it'll be a really great time to learn all these mechanics, to like figure out like all this stuff here. Like, look at the resist. This is kind of like Grim Dawn, right? There's like so many different resistances that you have. So I'm pretty excited about this. Hopefully they should be making a decent amount of money, right? It's pretty highly promoted on Steam when you go to ARPGs as a category. And yeah, so that's Wolcen. That's like my initial thoughts there, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. All right.